I grew up in a Christian home. My father was actually a Southern Baptist preacher since the time I was 3. And although it looked like a perfect home from the outside, there was no divorce, there was no sexual abuse, no drugs, there was still a lot of dysfunction behind the scenes. My dad was actually really married to his job, as you might say. He was very, very involved as a pastor, and that often left him emotionally exhausted when it came to our family. What was most important, like Julie said, is that I perceived his treatment of me as rejection, and I never felt that masculine love. I didn't feel accepted. I thought he loved everybody else more than me. And my mom also kind of felt this way with him as her husband, so we connected on a much deeper level than we were really supposed to. So as you can see, I was rejecting masculinity and accepting femininity as my identity, as my safe place from a very young age. I began to affect like Mom. I talked like her. I became very effeminate as a little child. I know I'm not now, thank the Lord. But believe me, I was very, very effeminate as a little child. And the other kids on the schoolyard picked up on that very quickly. And for a long time, throughout my grade school years, I wore the names sissy, girl, and lots of other horrible ones, as much as people called me by my real name. And it was so incessant and so nonstop that eventually I began to believe maybe it's true, because I can't escape it. And so, like she said, I got into puberty. Those needs, that need for male affection, that feeling of being different and wanting that to not be the way it is, that didn't go away, and I began to realize with horror that I was sexually and emotionally attracted to other boys. And that was very scary for me because, of course, growing up in a Southern Baptist home and church, I knew what God thought about that. And it didn't help that the church did not offer any hope in the area. Every time I heard about homosexuality, it was those gays are so gross, they're going to hell, that's why there is a hell, there's no hope for them. And I felt completely condemned before I could even know what was wrong. So I felt like God rejected me, my parents don't know how to help me, all the other boys treat me like I'm gay, it's hopeless. And when I was finally in high school, I met a girl who told me she was a lesbian, and this was the first person I ever felt comfortable telling about my background. And she introduced me to pornography, to other gay people, and this started a 5-year roller coaster in the gay lifestyle. By 16, I met my first boyfriend. We became sexually active within a week of meeting each other. That relationship did not last very long. I dove into the lifestyle because I was so hungry for that male affection, and even though that relationship didn't succeed, it didn't last, nearly forever. I felt like I'm finally getting the love that I've always wanted. At least it's something. Proverbs 27:7 says, to a man who's just eaten a big meal, even honey is no longer desirable, but to someone who's starving, anything bitter is sweet. And that's what gay love was to me. So I went into the lifestyle, and despite my parents' objections, they found out about it. They were horrified. They tried to stop it. They couldn't. I was too clever and devious. But I have had more sexual partners in those 5 years than I can even remember. I was very broken, very desolate, and I got to the point, I remember looking at myself in the mirror after having sex with someone who I didn't even know their name. I don't even think we spoke to each other, but I looked at myself and I said, who are you? I don't know who you are anymore. Is this what your life is? And I was in a place where I would go to hook up with other men, that the Lord met me. And I just had this strong feeling of his presence and him saying, I don't condemn you. You are that adulteress, you are like that adulterous woman in the story. I will chase your accusers away, but I need you to come with me. I have a better life for you than this. And that did not make me change right on the spot, but it gave me hope and a reason to start pursuing change for my sexuality. There was an Exodus ministry in the city where we were living, and they taught me how my background had affected my sexuality, as Julie has been telling you already. A lot of these things are true that I told you earlier. But I also desperately needed that male affection still. I had to learn that that was a legitimate need. And I needed to have men around me who would love me and touch me and treat me like I was one of the boys, because that's what I needed to know. And there were men who refused to do that in the church. I remember going to the director of men's ministries at one church and telling him what I struggled with. And I told him I needed a mentor, and he said, nobody at this church is going to mentor you. So I went to another church. I had actually given up, and I went I remember running into somebody, though, in public just a week after that, and he invited me to his church. And the young adult pastor at that church met with me and I told him right away what I struggled with, and he immediately agreed to mentor me and meet me every week. And I needed those peers, I needed those mentors, I needed those men around me who would love me and be patient with me while I didn't become a full-fledged heterosexual right away. They had to bear with me for the long haul through lots of struggles, through lots of ugly confessions of the sin that I was addicted to and I was still dealing with. But God has been faithful. He's been teaching me about himself, about the man that he created me to be, about what masculinity is, about what his vision is for this broken people in our nation. And at the beginning of the year, I'm going to celebrate my 25th birthday and 4 years of freedom from the homosexual lifestyle. So it is possible. God can do anything, and he will do anything for his children. So that's the story of me. Like you heard, I now work at Exodus. If I could choose anywhere to be and anything to be doing, it would be this. So God has blessed me immensely. He is good all the time.
First of all, I grew up in a home where my father was physically and verbally abusive to my mother. And as I looked on at their relationship, I made a very wrong conclusion. I believed that to be feminine was to be weak. I saw my mother as a victim, and I didn't want to be like her. I didn't want to be a victim. And so I hated being a girl because I thought that that was my destiny, was to be a victim like my mom if I embraced my own femininity. And so I had an older brother and a younger sister, and I really looked up to my older brother. I wanted to be like him in every way. I began to play sports at a very young age, and I developed very masculine traits because I was trying to hide who I was. And so growing up, my 3 nicknames were Sir, Son, and Young Man. That's what I was routinely called. My parents got divorced when I was in 5th grade, and I was sent away to live with relatives to another state, my younger sister and I. And that's when I was sexually molested by an older male cousin. And as you can imagine, this didn't help my already warped view of men. You see, by this time, I'd only ever seen a man treat a woman as the object of his lust or the victim of his abuse. So it's no wonder that I really didn't want to walk in what it means to be a woman. It seemed that with guys, all they cared about was sex. And so it's really interesting to note that generally speaking, lesbians are trying to protect against further hurt from a man, and that was definitely true in my own case. My first homosexual relationship began when I was 15 years old, and I really have to admit to you that it was exhilarating. It seemed to meet a need in my life because it was the first time I really felt special to somebody. I wasn't special to my parents. My mom had even told me at one time that I was a mistake, that she didn't plan to have me. That was very difficult for me, and I've had to reconcile that even though she didn't plan me, the Lord himself planned me from the beginning of time. That's what my Bible says, and so I'm grateful for that. But at this young age, at 15, lacking affirmation and feeling unsafe in my gender, when a girl in my high school paid attention to me, I was drawn to that because there was a hunger and a craving in my soul for a legitimate need for love from a same-sex parent, for bonding with my mother. And so I know that I was looking for my mother's love in the arms of another woman. I didn't know it then, but I'm able to see that in retrospect. But at the time, it really felt like this is who I am. I didn't know any different, and it was the first time I could feel like I mattered, and I just thought, this is who I am. And so I was just going to go with that. And I will tell you that I just don't want to belabor the whole point of my homosexuality in terms of how long that lasted. I mean, I was involved in that for 6 years, and I'm not going to describe that in detail. I do just want to fast forward to my last relationship because I want you to understand how somebody who feels so trapped in this and feels like this is their destiny could ever walk away from this. And I tell you, it's not easy. And so I hope that you can hear what I'm going to share so that maybe someday you can help somebody walk out of this. And for me, in my early 20s, I was in another relationship. At this time, it was with a married woman. And I have to be honest with you that I'm not proud of that fact, that I was a lesbian and a homewrecker. I'm grateful for his grace in my life, that he didn't judge me for that, but that there's no pit too deep, that God is not deeper still.